Welcome back. Employment in South Africa fell sharply at an annualized rate in June, following an even higher decline in May of 3.1%. Job losses in June amounted to around 32,000, bringing the total job losses for the past 2 months to 85,500. Machael Bagraim, Labour analyst at Bagraim Attorneys, joined us from our Cape Town studios. Let's take a look.
Unfortunately, we are going in the wrong direction, and in fact, it's getting worse month by month. I don't see us changing a mindset, and we need to change our mindset quite desperately, because this is going to lead to people coming out onto the streets. If you think about it, we've been quite lucky so far in that the people haven't come out onto the streets. But in essence, what we've got is almost 26% of the total working population not working. I think it's close on 50% of the youth not working, who are desperately looking for jobs. And the reality of the situation is those that are growing in employment are those in managerial and professional classes, and the latest Adcorp reports that those are the only two places that it's growing. The reality is also that the engine room of South Africa is slowly falling apart, where we've got manufacturing, mining, the real basis of our economy is moving downwards, and we're seeing it month by month. We keep getting reassured by government for some reason either that there's going to be a turnaround. We're not seeing that. And I'm placing a lot of the blame at COSATU's feet. They're not looking at the problem. They're looking at their members. May I just ask? Trying to enrich the members as
Michael, I'm bringing it back to studio. Shelo's got a burning question.
Hi, Mike. You've spent a lot of time. You spent a lot of time on this matter and looking at this data and talking to people, to all the actors on this matter. If I could just ask you to pinpoint one thing structurally that is causing unemployment or that can be fixed to create employment, what would that one thing be?
I think that one thing is, I looked at it quite a lot, and we think that one thing is perception. A lot of it is perception from the business community. In a previous program, we spoke about the fact that most of the business community have kept their investment back and holding it in bank accounts. We've also know that the perception is that the labor laws are horrific. So if you have a bit of education and we have some lead from either government or the trade union movement that we're in this boat together and we've sprung a leak, then at least the business community would sit up and say, right, how can we do this? How can we actually employ some people? So I think perception is a big problem, and it certainly leads to the businessman, the small businessman, the big businessman saying, I'm not investing. It's too dangerous.
Michael, what is happening with public sector employment? Does the Adcorp, I don't know if you know the details, does the Adcorp survey look at the public sector at all? And if so, what are the trends they're picking up there?
They have been looking at it. In this latest report, they haven't looked at it at all, but they have been looking at it in the past. And as you know, the public sector employment is increasing at a horrific rate. We're bloated. The public sector is bloated. The other problem that we've got is the public sector offering enormous sums of money to settle wage disputes, money which we don't have. So all this time, we're protecting those in the jobs as opposed to trying to create more jobs. And the public sector is at fault with this as well. And it's probably why the unions are saying let's call for more nationalization, because they know once industry is nationalized, the public sector will then grow, and then they'll be more organized and they'll have more members.
Michael, just in terms of the youth unemployment we were discussing a moment ago, where do we hit danger point, or are we already there? We were chatting off air a moment ago about the Arab uprisings, etc. Where do we go from here? I mean, are we at boiling point at 51% unemployment in the youth sector?
We have to be. We're at the boiling point right now. It's no longer the story of we're adding a glass of hot water to the pond so eventually the frog will die. We've actually reached the point where the frog's almost dead. The economy is almost dead. If 1 out of 2 youngsters, and I call youngsters anyone below the age of 35, but if 1 out of 2 are out of employment and looking for employment, where are they going to turn? Are they going to go to crime? Are they just going to go lie down and die? Or are they going to go out marching on the streets? I think we've just been damn lucky in South Africa that people haven't gone into the streets. We've seen 1 or 2 outbreaks every now and again, and we've seen a little bit of violence every now and again, but nothing like we saw in Cairo. And in reality, it's no different. I don't see the difference. And we remember Mr. Vavi a few months back, in fact, warned South Africa that we're going to see that soon. But he's done nothing about it. He, in fact, is trying to protect his members by giving them higher salaries and pushing for larger wage increases, as opposed to saying, how can we help trying to create more jobs? How can we reassure the business community that they need to invest their money, buy more machinery, more tooling, more equipment? We hasn't done any of that.
That was Machael Bagraim, Labour analyst at Bagraim Attorneys. Now, the country's factory output grew above expectations in May compared with last year, backing the case for interest rates to stay unchanged at next week's policy meeting. Now, growth in manufacturing production, which accounts for about 15% of GDP, outpaced a forecast at 4.2% year-on-year in volume terms in May, after rising by an increase to 1.1% in April. Stuart Jennings, chairman at the Manufacturing Circle, shed some light on the data earlier this week.
I think the positive area is certainly in automotive, and we've had a good run. The last 2 years, we've seen new car sales